Hello and welcome to Fanalytics. Today we'll be doing a weekend wrap of Game Week 3. It's your host Sharon. I'm joined by the two handsome co-hosts Matt and JC. Let's get straight into it. Let's go to the big one. Probably the match that we all were looking forward to and not looking forward to at the same time, especially me and JC. But it turned out okay. Man United beat Liverpool 2-1. JC, run me through your initial thoughts of the game.
Yeah, as you said, I kind of was very, very scared of this game, even with Liverpool's injuries. We kind of talked about the Brentford game where we kind of started off with mistakes and it just went downhill from there. And to be honest, I could kind of see the same thing with United. We kind of had a mass change everywhere on the pitch. So we didn't start with Maguire, we didn't start with Shaw, we didn't start with Fred nor Ronaldo. We had Elanga on the wings alongside Rashford and Sancho. Eriksen started as well as Fernandes with McTominay midfield. And to be honest, it was very, very good from the beginning on. We've said before in this podcast, United starts off quite well, actually. 10 minutes filled with energy, lots of things running about. But they managed to continue it on. And even though Liverpool do have their injuries, they're still a quality side. They just had a very, very good start to the game, and they managed to complete that for a long portion of the match, kind of falling off a bit to the end. But I guess when you're pressing that much against the Liverpool squad, eventually it'll come off. But I think it was really encouraging to see that the boys were really up for it. Like, they really looked like they wanted to play. And I think just as someone who's watched United for a long time, it's been a long time since I've seen that kind of performance, especially in the Liverpool games, which we haven't had recently.
Yeah, very true. And I think I haven't seen a great pressing performance from United since probably the LVG days. And even those days were like with boring football, we at least pressed correctly. So this one, it was quite interesting that we set up with the wide forwards and forwards pressing in tandem. Like normally Sancho would go with Rashford, or then it would be Elanga, and the boys really worked their socks off. Matt, as a non-Man United fan, were you impressed, or do you think it's just Liverpool's off day?
This game had a feel of it wasn't going to be a game where United had to turn up and tactically outthink Liverpool. It had a feeling that United just had to turn up and show some heart and desire, which was severely lacking against Brentford, where they just seemed to capitulate. And I said, I think last week that I have a sneaky feeling it's not going to be the Liverpool thrashing that everyone was sort of shaping it up to be, that actually United would turn up, and I didn't necessarily expect them to play as well as they did and to win the game the way they did. But I certainly expected them to show a bit of character and things like that, and they definitely did that, especially the first half. They were electric in that first half.
Yeah, we didn't give them a moment's rest, and I think the first talking point, we can talk about defense in a bit, but I was particularly impressed with Rashford. I think he was kind of perfect for these kind of games. We've seen it under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, where he can run in behind the defense quite well. He does time his runs in terms of a curved run, but he normally lacks the end finish. And against Alisson, probably one of the best 1v1 goalkeepers there is in the Premier League, or probably world football, he's done amazingly well. He finished that. I was like, Alisson kind of positioned himself to say, hey, come on, beat me around the corner. No, Rashford stuck to his guns. Another player that I saw was really good was Fernandes, and then the inclusion of Martial. I thought Elanga had a really good game. He tried to tackle on Trent quite a bit, but I think what Martial did is that he kept the ball. Like, whenever he dropped the ball would stick to him, and he kind of relieved that pressure. And Liverpool are quite good at closing down in all areas of the pitch. And this is a quick graphic of Martial with Rashford, Fernandes with Rashford against Kane and Son, who are probably the best duos. And you can see the goal involvement per minutes and their win-losses are decent. They're up there. They're still not Kane and Son's level. But I think with more minutes under a proper structure, a proper possession structure that we've had for so many years, I think it could be a good dynamic going forward. And I'm quite looking forward because Martial had a good pre-season. So let's see if he can kick on.
Yeah, Martial really looked up for it. I thought he held the line well. I thought he he passed the ball into the space, because there was actually a lot of gaps in between, like Gomez and Trent and Gomez and Van Dijk, and I felt like he just allowed Rashford to make best use of the space. So I think that was like really important, as well as Fernandez. Like, I mean, I love Fernandez at times, and sometimes I hate him, but when he plays a game like that, where he just like runs at the first thing he sees, and he just puts pressure in a delicate way, I would say. Sometimes I would say that he kind of just runs about with no idea, but I feel like this time he really kind of kept his helmet on in the game, and really did well by the boys.
Just to follow your point on about Martial, he had a strong pre-season for United, Anthony Martial, and he has had these sort of spells at United ever since he arrived, where for 2 or 3 months he looks, like the player that United spent 60 million on. He does disappear at times, but I think it's a big chance for him, new manager. Like I said, he had a strong pre-season. He came on and looked good on Monday night. This might finally be his time, and if United don't get that centre back that they are sort of looking at before deadline, he might have a key role to play for them.
Yeah, 100%. I think he needs to keep fit. He needs to keep that hunger, because biggest criticisms of Martial has always been like inside the box movement and sort of pressing as well. He's a bit of a lazy French forward. But I think with preseason under Ten Hag, who's a commanding manager, he seems to have gone that one up level. But let's see if we can keep that going. But in terms of that was a strike force, Matt, who are you impressed with the defense?
Well, Varane came in and had an absolutely spectacular display.
Mm-hmm.
It's never easy with these Liverpool attackers. Even a Liverpool side that may not necessarily be at their best, they're just a nightmare to defend against. There's so much movement. There's so many runs from midfield as well. But Varane's come in first start of the season, and he looked really, really good. He had a quiet season last year. There was a lot of fanfare when he arrived, and obviously United had a difficult season. I think he kind of slipped under the radar, but on paper, I still think he's United's best centre back. I don't know about you guys, but he definitely showed his quality against Liverpool.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think in terms of a centre back pairing, you would want one aggressive and one kind of the cover. I think in terms of cover centre backs, Varane's still up there. He needs to sort out these injuries. Last season, he had quite a few, I think either hip or knee, and kept them out for a long time as a game. And it's not something we need, because Harry Maguire is always fit. That's still a good thing about him. Like, he's always ready. He's always in top condition. So Varane's got to keep that part of his game.
Yeah, I think with Varane, Maguire, and Martinez. Like, I know Maguire's gets a lot of criticism, but there's 3 genuinely very good centre backs that United have there, and it doesn't have to be a case of, hey, these 2 are playing and the other one is just going to ride the bench for as long. You can pick your poison here. Like, they've all got different strengths, different weaknesses. You can use these guys well and get solid defensive displays week in, week out, I think.
Yeah, very true. I guess we looked at Man United defense, but what about Liverpool? Conceding quite a lot, conceding first at least.
Yeah, I mean, you look at those results. The last 7 games, going back to last season as well, they've conceded first. 7 in a row. They've got 3 wins in that time and 3 draws from those 7 games. So the results aren't actually that bad.
Yeah,
but it's a worrying trend. There's only so long you can keep conceding the first goal week in, week out, and getting away with it. And last week we spoke about the only issue for Liverpool with their start to the season is that they're already losing ground to Man City. Now, all right, spoiler alert, Man City, dropped 2 points themselves, but it's still a point gained on Liverpool this weekend. And, we know they have that very, very aggressive style where they often do leave themselves exposed, and they've got the best one-on-one keeper probably in world football. But you know, one-on-ones are supposed to be scored by the attacking side, and the attacking teams will score them more often than not, no matter how good your goalkeeper is. And it's worrying for Liverpool. They've got to get better defensively. They can't just rely on Van Dijk is going to, you know, clean everything up, sort of thing.
I think that United game where it was Gomez and Van Dijk, I think you kind of saw the effects of having a partnership that wasn't necessarily strong. I think I heard somewhere that the last time those two played was in the 8-2 loss against Aston Villa last year, and I think you kind of saw that lack of communication between the two. There were times where Gomez and Van Dijk were so far apart. I'm not sure if that was meant to be or whatever, but they definitely left open the space for United to exploit. But then also on the other hand, like Liverpool are like completely injured. I think they've got 8 or 9 first team players that are injured. They're waiting on some important pieces in midfield as well. So I have no doubt that when their pieces come back together again, they'll be getting clean sheets, be dominating games, and then, you know, similar to last year, make that amazing run towards the end of the season to catch up to City.
Yeah, but you only have to go back 2 seasons to when, you know, they were obliterated by injuries, and they almost missed out on Champions League football. And if they were to have a sort of similar season to that this season, with the way that Arsenal started the season, with, you know, Tottenham and Chelsea may not have hit their best form yet, but it's going to be a lot more difficult, I think, for them if they have a season like that. They've got to get to grips with these this, you know, defensive displays that they're putting out. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, as good as he is going forwards, when he's not, you know, getting the goals, or more importantly, the assists going forward, you probably do, you know, look at his defending a bit more, and or lack thereof, because across the board, you know, he struggles one-on-one. You know, Elanga had great success against him on Monday. It seems week in, week out, I see Wiggins having great success one-on-one against him. And we know his positioning can be he can be caught up the pitch. That is largely due to Liverpool's tactical sort of shape. But, you know, that's a concern. And Gomez and Alexander-Arnold on the right-hand side of that defence, it really got exploited by Rashford in particular.
Yeah, I think I looked at a graphic where all our goal kicks were targeted to that side. You know, we can win the second balls there. Trent's obviously, it's a 50-50 in terms of header duels, and he's definitely being targeted. And even for that first goal, for Sancho's goal, he was nowhere to be seen. He barely jogged back, which is kind of a concern. I mean, Liverpool defense in those goals didn't cover themselves in glory, but I especially looked at Trent, and he needs to have that bit more fire in terms of getting back. Can't just rely on his output, of his attacking output.
Yeah, I mean, this is World Cup year, and he hasn't cemented an England place, and I don't think he will. I think that defensive sort of lack of awareness of his is going to cost him. I think there's probably 3 right backs that Gareth Southgate prefers to Trent at the moment.
And from one fullback to another, our new boy Malacia did very well. What do you think of him, JC?
Yeah, I think he did very well given the circumstances. So Malacia started off on left back in a completely new left-hand side of the United field. So he was right next to Martinez and Varane and Dalot, so also a completely new back four. So I think given the circumstances, given, you know, it was versus Liverpool against one of the best wingers in the world, because Salah was obviously on the right-hand side, probably on purpose by Klopp, that he kind of held Salah back, I would say. I don't think at times he necessarily like dominated him, or he completely outplayed him. I'm definitely not saying that, but I think when you're that young, going up against one of the best wingers in the world, you know, you have to give a bit, and I feel like he just did a great job with, like, you know, his tackling. He had great pressures. I almost kind of wish that he would go up a bit forward because he's absolutely rapid, and I think one of the benefits of having a player like Manasseh at left back is that you can almost fight pace with pace, and just almost take away one of the core strengths to Liverpool's attack with Salah. But I think in terms of his role to play, like, I hope he continues on this left back role. Just making sure that he can probably be a bit more solid defensively. There are times where he just kind of let Salah go past him, especially towards the end of the game where he was playing more. Salah was playing more centrally, and kind of let I can't remember who was Robertson pushed forward as well, even though he had a relatively quiet game. But I mean, in terms of the game, I thought he did very well for the young lad.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, especially like one of your first full debuts against Liverpool. That must be scary going through that tunnel. He took it in stride though. He never looked scared. Quite composed. Him and Martinez, like they were passing to each other quite comfortably under a press, which is probably why Ten Hag has chosen them. But yeah, you're right. Salah was kind of quiet. Still scored a goal, annoyingly, but still quite good.
I mean, annoyingly, but do we expect any different from Salah? Like,
No.
he just tends to get goals. Like, he's just a goal machine, and I don't think this was one of his best games. I noticed quite a lot of the time that for vast majority of his game, he was stuck to the right wing. Like, he was pretty much just stuck there whilst like Harvey Elliott would push up, or one of the other midfielders. But I think that kind of didn't help him a lot. I think almost they kind of expected Malacia to be a bit more weak, I would say. But I think as the game went on and Salah was definitely taking up more central positions, he definitely felt a bit more into the game. So as you can see there, he obviously got a goal at the back post for a header, 3 shots created, only 6 progressive carries and 1 progressive pass, was edged a lot by Salah's like high standards. And a big part of that is because I think Firmino, they're almost not rushing him back, but obviously he I don't think he would have played if Nunez didn't get the red card last week. I feel like Nunez was definitely the type of striker they would want against, you know, United, or at the time before we kind of found out this formation. But yeah, quiet game for Salah, but you know, he is one of the best wingers in the world. So he'll naturally get goals, but I feel like this Liverpool attack is kind of a bit distraught because of the injuries, because of all the chopping and changes. But you know, it's Salah; he'll get 20 plus goals a season, maybe probably more than that. So no worries. He just had a bad game, and it happens sometimes for the best players. But yeah, not the best showing.
Yeah,
He didn't
have much service either, to be fair. He did get past Malacia a few times, but the good thing about Malacia is, like you said, his rapid pace. He just caught up so quickly. So it was like Salah was, oh, I've got past you, and now what do I do again? But in terms of that was Liverpool dropping points, and as Matt rudely spoiled it, Newcastle and City 3-3 goal-tastic. Matt, who was the key standouts for you?
Yeah, there was quite a few from both teams. This was a wild game to watch. And end to end, both teams were on top at different times of this one. But for Newcastle, I want to point out Joe Linton. You know, his transformation to central midfielder is pretty much complete at this point. Like you can't think of him as like an attacking player anymore. He's a box to box midfielder, and those stats there: 3 tackles, 5 interceptions, 4 shot creating actions, 2 key passes. That's an all round performance from central midfield. He is so good. He's a big strong lad as well in the middle of the park. He's everything you want in a central midfielder, and you know, credit to Eddie Howe for sort of recognizing that in him. He came into Newcastle, Howe, with a player who was kind of struggling, Joe Linton. He always worked hard, but sort of struggled for end product, you know, playing in attacking areas. And seemed to lose a bit of confidence in himself as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, he saw something in him that made him, that moved him into, you know, central midfield, and Newcastle reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, that is a find by Harry. Like, I remember watching Joe Linton. I was like, is this actually a footballer? He seems to like always model his free up in attack. He never keep the ball. Yeah, I don't know how he discovered it. I don't know, but it seems like now you watch him now, I'm like, yeah, he is a midfielder. How did we think otherwise?
He does. He feels like a natural, and he's a difficult player to control, really, in that central midfield, because he still does have that sort of wild sort of flair, if you like, to his game, where you're not quite sure what he's going to do. It's not, you know, it's not like Guimaraes, where, you know, he gets the ball, it's all very cute, it's all very subtle, very nice. It's you know, to use a Klopp term, it's like heavy metal, you know, football. He's got that sort of style about him. Yeah,
very true. Like you said, from heavy metal to fine art, Bernardo came back to
the same level. Well, yeah, that is a nice little move into Bernardo. I didn't intend that, but it was his first start of the season. Bernardo Silva back in the team. He's obviously been linked with a move to Barcelona, but, you know, a goal and an assist, 7 tackles and interceptions as well. You don't expect that from Bernardo Silva. When you think of the kind of player he is for Man City, you don't think of a ball winner. No. You think of a guy that gets on the ball and creates things. And he was playing from wide in this game against Newcastle, back to sort of where he started for Manchester City. But he's devastating wherever you put him on the pitch. He's a cute player.
Yeah, that ball or something.
I think Bernardo is one of those players that does really well just when there's space in front of him and he can kind of maneuver across the field wherever he is. Like, he started at right wing, but he turned up literally everywhere to ping the ball. Obviously, I think he was the one that put in that great ball to Gundogan for his goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's obviously got the touch. He kind of knows where everyone is, and he's just one of those players where I don't think he necessarily is the best technically. Like, he'll never do skills all over the place, but he gets the ball, maneuvers 5-10 yards, passes the ball, and does it. When you do that 20, 30 times a game, that's a massive amount of the field.
He's clever. He's not necessarily flashy or showy, but he's very, very clever with the ball. He very rarely gets dispossessed. And, you know, for, you know, a small player, doesn't often get bullied off the ball. You know, I know Pep values that above all else, ability to keep possession, and he's one of the best at it.
Yeah, he's very press resistant as well, right? Like,
yeah,
I've seen 3 players around him, and he's just calm as a cucumber.
Almost like Iniesta sometimes. That's kind of reminds you of how he plays.
Yeah,
just completely press resistant. Knows when to give away the ball. Does a lot of stuff in terms of pace and calming the game down or turning it up when it needs to. And like, he's around the goals and assists. I just, you know, I had him in my FPL team a lot of the time last year. Just wish he could score more goals and get more assists. But I feel like with Haaland there, he'll definitely be doing that.
Yeah,
especially if he's playing on the wing.
Yeah, it's interesting to see him in the wing, because majority of his last season he was in that centre mid as at 8. But let's look at Newcastle's star man, Saint-Maximin. Never really much with the output, but a lot of pace, a lot of trickery. But he was a thorn in Newcastle City side today.
Yeah, Saint-Maximin, I think he's one of those players that blows hot and cold. Sometimes he'll, you know, do these tricks and not get very far, and sometimes he'll be facing the best team in the world and absolutely burning Walker for pace. There's not many players in this in the Premier League that can beat Walker for pace, but I saw it multiple times that Saint-Maximin was just too fast, and I think the strategy from Newcastle was literally just get the ball on the left hand side, Newcastle's left hand side, and fight pace with pace, as we talked about with Malacia and Salah, and just kind of take Walker head on, because, you know, with Cancelo on the left and that absolutely built up midfield. There's not many places to attack, so why not attack Walker, who kind of can be defensively found out, I guess, and sometimes. And 15 progressive carries, that's a massive amount. He got 3 assists, 3 goals, lots of progressive passes. I felt like he's one of those players that he almost feels like a FIFA like Ultimate Team player. Like, he's just so tricky, and he just gets by people. But I feel like the difference between him in this game and various other games was he actually had that kind of understanding to put in that final ball and kind of know when to do that pass to Callum Wilson for that. I think it was the second goal. Yeah, where he passed to Wilson on the way. Wilson took a nice touch, took it forward, and placed the ball into the net. I just think he's a great player to watch. I wish sometimes he would do more in terms of his output, but he's definitely the poison to City. I felt in that game.
Yeah, I love Saint-Maximin. This feels like exactly his kind of game where he just has space to run into. I think a Newcastle fan summed it up with Saint-Maximin, where in a game like this, where you're facing a high line, where there's a lot of counter-attacking opportunities, he's brilliant. You won't find many players better than Saint-Maximin. But, in games where you're facing a low block, things have to be a little bit cuter, move the ball a little bit quicker, and to a structure to try and draw the defence out. That's not his strength, and reminds me a bit of Pepe at Arsenal, where I think that's where Pepe's really struggled at Arsenal, is that he doesn't suit a possession-based team that has to move the ball side to side. He's best at his best moving forward on the counter-attack, attacking space, taking players on one-on-one. And Saint-Maximin was just brilliant in this game. Absolutely brilliant. I love watching him.
Yeah, he's a fan favorite for all Newcastle fans, and you can definitely see why. Bags of tricks, bags of pace, and today I think you were right in terms of he doesn't suit the possession style football, but in terms of transitional, it's like him, Traore, maybe even Neto to a certain aspect of it. These players are such great players to have in that system, but I guess it's up to the coach to, because it's such great one-on-one players. It's almost like the way they do for Arsenal does it for Saka, where they kind of get the ball quickly to Saka to tackle that one defender before it becomes a low block.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I'm worried for Saint-Maximin in the long term at Newcastle, and why he's a guy they might just choose to cash in on.
Yeah,
because I think as Newcastle sort of go through this process and become the team that I think we kind of expect them to be at this point, that they may become unsuited to his style of play.
Yeah, very true. Another key player who's enjoying his number 8 role is Gundogan.
Yeah, City are just stacked with these great midfield players. Like, obviously, we just talked about Bernardo, but Gundogan kind of does it in a different way, I think. Whereas Bernardo kind of moves his way kind of vertically across the field, Gundogan is great doing that final run into the box where defenders are kind of dealing with Foden or Haaland or Bernardo. Gundogan obviously got a goal through that type of play with a late run into the box through Bernardo, and he also got a goal called off in, I think, game week 2, offside in a similar type of position, and the week prior as well. So he definitely has goals in him. I think the issue with Gundogan in this game is that he's very much I think he likes the control. He likes to play the pass to the winger to make sure he has that space for a late one. And Newcastle kind of played in a way that was counter to that. They obviously pressed City quite well, and when the opposition team presses as well as Newcastle did, Gundogan wasn't allowed to maneuver the ball in positions where he needed to be. But even having said that, he still got a goal. He still got, a goal created action and 7 shot created action. So I feel like he's one of those players that will be forever in this City squad for the coming year. Be interesting to see what happens to him when the Champions League starts, because he is kind of injury prone, but he's a phenomenal player. Like, he could do it all. He could pass, he could shoot, he could take set pieces if he wanted to. He runs all the time, and I think he's fantastic. He's been fantastic so far this season.
You are right about he could do it all. You could genuinely play him as in sort of any of those roles in the centre of midfield, and he has played as a false nine as well for City at times. And I think he's kind of a victim of his own, flexibility in that midfield, in that he's never really been able to nail down one spot at City. But he often captains the side when he's in the team, which I think says a lot when you think of the quality of players in that squad and the quality characters they have in that squad. For him to be captain, I think says a lot about the person and the player that he is. And I'd like to see him more, because you're right, Jay. He's a very, very good player, very underrated player in that City midfield.
Yeah,
he was.
Oh, sorry, Jesse.
Yeah, I was just going to say on the captaincy point, he was voted captain after Fernandinho left. So the players clearly see him in that leadership role, and I feel like whenever the players vote you in, especially over KDB, he took a majority of that captaincy last season. I think that means something, and I think players kind of look to him for that leadership role.
Oh yeah, for definite. Like when Pep bought him from Dortmund, I think he had a lot of injuries at Dortmund before he came over, and they got him pretty cheap. He didn't really hit the ground running in his first season, but that's a common thing with City signings. But yeah, Matt, you're right. He can play a 6, he can play a 8, he can play a false 9. I wouldn't be surprised he can play goalkeeper. He's got the whole package, really. Yep, with Newcastle performance, it was definitely a team performance. But one player I want to isolate is Nick Pope, the summer signing who joined from Burnley. They didn't really need another goalkeeper. I think Dubravka was doing quite well, but Pope's kind of elevated the game. He's just as good at shot stopping, but he's in the high percentiles for defensive actions outside his penalty area. Also, passes attempted. Even like people don't realize with Pope is he's not just a goalkeeper that sticks on his line. He normally does come out. He normally is involved with build up, and he normally is controlling the penalty area quite well. I think against Man City, even though he conceded 3 goals, which you can't really say a highlight for a player, he made 6 incredible saves. A lot of 1-on-1s. They could have easily lost this with 6-3 or something, but Pope's kept them in the game and got them a point.
Yeah, it was an eyebrow-raising summer signing from Newcastle, just because, like you said, Dubravka had done a pretty good job at Newcastle. I thought he was actually one of their better players over the past couple of years when they've been sort of struggling like this. And it reminds me of last summer, Arsenal going out and signing Ramsdale, when you thought, I don't think there was all that much wrong with Bernd Leno. But actually, a few weeks into the season, it becomes clear that these keepers give them an extra dimension. And we're always criticising, De Gea, that he doesn't have this sort of ability in his game. And when Manchester United do find this sort of keeper who will suit their system, you'll see what they were missing. I think it would help take them to that next level.
Yep, definitely. In terms of the next match, was an upset to say the least. Leeds have continued their fine form and beat Chelsea 3-0. But even though Chelsea had maybe the first 10 minutes under control, Leeds were pretty comfortable, I'd say. Yeah, JC, what did you think of the match?
Yeah, I thought similar, like exactly, you're right. I thought Chelsea had a very good start. Chelsea doing Chelsea things. They kind of pressure you from the wings and move the ball forward via that channel. If not Cucurella on the floor, or for James via a cross. But Chelsea had a goal called offside, which was unfortunate, which would have been a Cucurella assist, which would have been great, but we carry on. But yeah, Leeds, what was I think most impressive for me was the amount of times they pressured Chelsea, all stages of the field. And I think it's kind of different than the Bielsa press, I feel. I feel like it's a bit more control. It's not necessarily man-to-man, which is what Bielsa likes to do. It was more your normal pressing triggered when people lost the ball, and I would say Gallagher was at fault for a large portion of that. I was looking at his numbers, and he actually didn't lose it that much, and he actually had a good game, but it felt like he was definitely not playing like he did at Crystal Palace. Maybe it's just understanding a new system or whatever, but Leeds did feel like they were kind of targeting him in terms of their press, and as you can see here, most pressures in the midfield third, attacking third, and also defensive third, also total pressures. And obviously they had Koulibaly sent off through a ridiculous challenge. I don't know what he was thinking, but that obviously goes into a lot of the pressures. But even before then, they were absolutely choking that Chelsea midfield kind of 10, 15 minutes throughout the game. And I think it's just impressive when, we kind of talked about with Newcastle and Fulham in game week 1 against Liverpool, where, they know who the better teams are, but there's something to be said about the players and not allowing them to be bullied into a certain position. And Leeds really took it to them, which you have to commend.
Yeah, I think you're bang on about the Leeds. The way they pressure. They've sort of stayed true to the Bielsa style of high intensity pressing out of possession, but there is more structure to it. It's not a man on man where players could be dragged about all over the pitch. Teams really started to use it against Leeds last season. That man on man style that they played defensively. Now it's more of a zone sort of press that basically every team in the world plays now, and it's working for them so far this season. They seem like a really exciting, young, energetic side.
Yep, I've got to give you credit for Matt. You did call it in our preview of the season, and I was like, I'm not too sure, but yep, I think they've been one of the better teams to watch outside maybe Man City, Arsenal, and Brighton. They're probably my fourth favorite team right now to watch. Like you guys have said, pressures are insane, but also that when they're defending, everyone's getting back, running, sprinting back, and as a Leeds fan, that must be a joy to watch. And one player that I want to pick out who kind of epitomizes this kind of Leeds tracking is Tyler Adams. Here you got stats: 7 tackles inception, 6 blocks, 4 out of 5 tackles versus dribblers, and 23 presses. These are all the highest stats in that match for each attribute. And he's one of those players that you see everywhere in the duels, everywhere on the ball. I just don't know. There might be 2 of them, but he's just literally everywhere. And when they lost Phillips, it was a big concern because Phillips has given them such stability over the years, and they were trying to figure out how you would replace him. But Tyler Adams has fit in very nicely, I would say.
Yeah, he's quality. Tyler Adams. There was even one point in the game where the commentators started talking about Tyler Adams, and he appeared out of nowhere and won the ball. He came from off camera and out of nowhere and won the ball. And yeah, we all thought they were going to miss Calvin Phillips, and as we go forward into the season, they still might to an extent, but they seem to be playing with 2 deeper midfielders. Adams and Mark Rocker is playing a bit deeper as well. Yeah, and you're right. They're a really fun side to watch.
Especially 2 key men up front on the wing, and Harrison and Rodrigo.
Yeah, those two are great together. And we mentioned it last week that are we going to start seeing the Rodrigo that we sort of expected when he joined a couple of years ago? And so far so good. He's looking really up for it this season. I think he's got the captaincy as well.
Yeah,
I've noticed, and he's thriving in that number 9 position. That's where I prefer him. I like him up top near the opposition's goal. There was a few times where it felt like it was just shoot on sights, shoot on sight, and
he doesn't do that.
But when you got a left foot like that, I don't mind that, to be fair. And Jack Harrison has always been a streaky player.
Yeah,
but I mean, we're talking about 3 games out of 3 now where he's looked really, really good for Leeds, and we talk about the structure from a defensive standpoint. There's also a bit more structure going forward. These attacking players aren't here, there, and everywhere, all over the pitch going forward. Harrison, he's on the left wing. He's always on the left wing, and it seems to be working for him. Just that bit of structure going forward.
Yeah, and definitely to touch on your points about Bielsa versus Marsh, they're a lot more direct, but not in terms of long balls going to opposite, but they literally bypass the midfield whenever they can. Their balls go straight from defense to the forwards. They're just trying to get to A to B as quick as possible. I think in essence, if they lose the ball, all the players are so close to each other. It's a great pressing trigger. Like that's what happened with the Conor Gallagher's first goal. There were literally three Leeds players that lost the ball, but they all closed him down so fast. And the only pass he had was against Mendy.
Yeah, I think the style is very, very similar to Bielsa in terms of it's a very vertical sort of style of attack. The difference is under Bielsa is a lot more carrying. There's a lot more dribbling. Yeah. Players would just run at the opposition defense, whereas now I think you're right. There's a lot more of those balls, early balls, straight in behind. Get those attacking players involved immediately.
Yeah, they don't mind losing the ball, which is, you see a lot. Yeah,
because that intensity, they're just going to win it back in like a few seconds' time.
Yeah, it's a bit like old Ragnar Gegenpress. But in terms of another understudy for Gegenpress, Tuchel, what's gone wrong? What do you think about?
Yeah, well, this stat says it all really. First 30, he's been in charge of Chelsea for 60 Premier League games now. And over those 60 games, they've maintained that goals per game of 1.73. First 30, it was that. Last 30, it's been that. But goals against has basically doubled in that time. And, we've been mentioning it this season, how their form dovetailed at the back end of last season. Their points per game has gone down significantly. They've gone from a team that was right with Liverpool and Man City, you would have said, halfway through last year.
Yeah, they were next contender.
They were very much in the race, and it just second half of the season they went from title contenders to top four, chasing. I mean, they had a little bit of margin in that regard, but it is concerning defensively, and Koulibaly getting sent off, he's now suspended. That's not helpful. They're looking at Fofana. We're hearing about Maguire. I don't know if it's just a case of they're just being linked with absolutely everyone under the sun at the moment, but it seems like they're pretty desperate to sort this defense out. But yeah, it's weird. I'm not sure why. You can't really put your finger on what's happened here. Their style of football hasn't really changed in that time. The personnel hasn't really changed in that time. Maybe teams just figured them out.
Yeah, I think that's what's most likely. Like, teams aren't as scared of Chelsea as they used to be because the main source of attack is the wing backs. Reece James was caught most offside in that game, which says a lot about the forward lines. No one is penetrating behind the defense. They all want ball to feet, like Mount, Sterling, Havertz. If no one's going in behind, the defenses can stay quite compact. And Reece James is the only one that really looks like it's going to cause any trouble. Chilwell sometimes when he comes on. All the other players are good. I do think they've lost midfield. I think with Jorginho and Kante gone, Gallagher doesn't really suit that double pivot. They need Kovacic. Yeah, they just need to bolster up the midfield and probably get a striker, I would say.
Yeah, striker's the most important thing. I feel like when you have attacks coming through the wings, I feel like without that strong vocal point, like leading the line, you're just gonna have a really hard time to get the goals necessary. Like, I can honestly say Chelsea had great chances against Leeds. I can't honestly remember because there were so few far in between. Sterling, I think he did great on the wing, but again, like he'll be a tricky player where he goes through 3 or 4 people because he's so quick and so nimble. But kind of can't get the goals, which is his issue in City sometimes. And Mount's a great player, like we've said before. I just don't think he's kind of your traditional supplying winger, similar to, I don't know, Mane or Salah is.
Yeah, he's not going to get you too many goals, Mount. And yeah, you're right about Sterling. And this game, we sort of saw what Sterling gives Chelsea. Like first 20 where Chelsea were on top in this game, he had one chance where he sort of wriggled away from a few defenders, created something for himself, put it wide. And then there was another one where he had a half chance that he actually did put in the back of the net out of nothing, but called back for offside. And that's kind of what you get with Sterling. You know, he's not clinical, and he had volume at Man City. That was the difference. He had huge volume of chances, and his goal scoring record improved there. But they desperately need a number 9 that scores goals.
Yeah, very true. Next match was Fulham-Brentford. I guess story of number 9s there. Mitrovic and Tony both doing really well in the match. Mitrovic with a late winner. I think in this match, it could have gone either way. I think Fulham were lucky probably a little bit to get the edge on Brentford. I think it was a quite even game for what I saw of it. I did find it funny that Mitrovic said that Tony looked up to him. That made me laugh. And he's just that kind of character, right? He didn't really set the light the Premier League on his other stints, but this season feels a bit different. This season feels a bit more nimbler. Before he used to be kind of in the box, bit of a poacher, but now he can sort of dribble. We saw in the first game against Liverpool where he put Van Dijk into 12s. And he's done it again in this match where he was a constant thorn in the defenses. And as you can see here, 3 goals, 3 XG, 15 shots, 8 on target, 14 of those shots inside the box. These are the highest in terms of all players, not just for the game week. So he's a real menace, I think. And I think with Fulham, if they can improve defensively, I think they will score goals.
Yeah, he had so many chances in this game, and his celebration at the end was probably more something of relief that he didn't have to answer to all those missed chances. He still feels like he always felt like a striker that would come into the Premier League and score the goals for Fulham.
Yeah,
and it's just not quite happened for him before. But yeah, maybe it is different this time. I hope it's different because he's always felt like a Premier League caliber player. I've always looked at him in the Championship like, what the hell is he doing there? You know, honestly, he's a way better player than that. No disrespect to sides in the Championship, but you know, this guy, he starts for his country. Like, there's a quality player there, quality goal scorer. He should be in the Premier League.
Yeah, great head over the ball as well. That's 2 goals now that he's pinned the fullback. Could be good seeing him how the fullbacks will deal with him now because he seems to be pinpointing that area. And one man providing a lot of crosses and set pieces, Pereira. You're on mute, Matt.
You're on mute.
Again. Yeah, Pereira has been a really, really good signing for Fulham. I think when you've got a striker like Mitrovic up front that we've just spoken about, you need someone that's going to provide the ammunition for him to really get going. And I think Pereira can be that player for Fulham. He never really got going at Manchester United. Maybe he never got a decent run in the team to prove it. But whenever I saw him for United, it looked a bit too big for him. Maybe, you know, bit of a smaller club. He'll be a slightly bigger fish in this pond. Maybe this is the perfect move for him to really get his career sort of going again. Because he was, you know, a highly rated player a couple of years ago after, I think he was on loan at Valencia?
Yeah, Valencia. Yeah.
Valencia, he had a good spell there. So if him and Mitrovic can keep this sort of link-up play, Fulham have a much better chance of staying in the division this season.
He's always known as pre-season Perlo. He was nearly our answer to the number 6 role, which is insane now thinking about it now. But yeah, he always seems to flatter in pre-season, and then there was a lot of cry to get him to the starting 11. Then he got into starting 11 for Man United, and he never really imposed himself in the game. But
yeah,
it is hard to say because Man United have been transitioning from one to the other, it was always going to be hard for any kind of young player developing, right? So
Yeah, I've never seen him as a 6. I do see him as more of like a
10.
sort of 10 or a Roman 8. I like watching him though. Good player.
And Brentford, they beat Man United 4-0. They were close to getting a draw in this point, but they are impressing.
Yeah, I mean, this last 11 games going back to the start of April, 2 goals, averaging over 2 goals a game. That's like that's a title winning sides that score that many goals. 1.8 points per game is really impressive as well in that time. And we thought maybe with Ericsson gone, would they still have that sort of attacking quality? They definitely do. They're scoring goals for fun at the start of this season, and they score goals in a lot of different ways. They showed that last week against Man United better than ever. That they can hit you and hurt you a lot of different ways. They probably do need to get a little bit better defensively. Probably give up too many chances, and can they sustain this sort of goal scoring? We'll see. Tony never got going in the goals department last season. It's looking good for him so far this season, though.
Yeah, Tony, I think he kind of had a slow start to the season, didn't he? But I think he definitely kind of picked it up towards the end, and I feel like where a lot of teams are lacking in that upfront department, I feel like Brentford are really benefiting from a solid 2-striker structure with Mbeumo and Tony. And I honestly think if Tony can continue this kind of form, he obviously got a goal and 0.7 XG, but also he's really good at kind of creating chances for other people. He's actually quite unselfish for a player of his caliber. He just got a goal called offside twice, so he could have scored more. But I really think if he can continue this form, I would love to see him playing like good Champions League football. I feel like a team like United could really benefit from a striker like Tony, where he probably isn't the fastest striker, but he was really good at holding up the ball. He's kind of complete composure, where we saw it against Brentford, where quick look up from a corner breakdown and pass it straight to Mbeumo. He's a great passer of the ball, so I feel like he's a really complete striker. And obviously, he started off great the season. I think he's got a goal in every game, bar one maybe. So he's starting off really well. As you said, Matt, like I think Brentford in general just need to sort their defensive issues, but I really like Brentford. I think they're a great team. But yeah, Tony for me is kind of one of their better players.
Yeah, I love these strikers outside the top 6. And this game is a perfect example of Tony and Mitrovic, quite similar players in many regards, and players that when they play big sides or good teams in this division, like your Liverpools, your Man Cities, and whatnot, they genuinely have to account for players like this. Tony, Mitrovic, guys. I mean, Mitrovic caused Liverpool all sorts of problems on opening day. Tony will do the same to us because they just give defenders nightmares. They're so strong. They're good in the air, but they're also good on the floor as well. They can receive a pass. They can spin. They can get others involved. They can get on the end of things. Proper all-round strikers. And, teams lower down the division need these kind of guys that can really carry the team at times.
I definitely see a rise of these kind of types of strikers. We're seeing it with Haaland, Nunes, who came in, but it's these kind of strikers who kind of, in possession, they can link up the play, and then as soon as it goes to the wide forwards or the creative players, they're in the box. They're already stretching the defense. And I think you got with Haaland, Nunes, you got Gabriel Jesus, who did that wonderful takedown against Bournemouth, and they kind of straight in, run into the defense. Tony, Mitrovic also can do that, and they're also quite good area threats. It's kind of complete strikers are coming more and more of a throughout the probably seasons progress. They're probably throughout all the teams.
Yeah, because I mean, you think back like 20 years when everyone was playing 4-4-2, you often had two sort of complementary strikers. You had a big man, small man sort of link up or something of that sort. One that drops deep, one that gets in behind. Now, we're seeing strikers that are actually a combination of both of those guys. Because with the proliferation of one striker teams, you have to be able to do everything now. It's born out of a necessity, really. But we're seeing some great strikers coming through.
Now that we've done our 4 key matches, let's round up the rest of the games. Let's start off with Arsenal and Bournemouth. Arsenal kept their winning 4, probably the only team. I think they had 3 wins out of 3. Their impressive performance again, but Bournemouth was a bit lackluster at the same time.
Yeah, it's obviously been a difficult couple of games for Bournemouth. City away, Arsenal, inform Arsenal at home.
Yeah.
But I think it's more about Arsenal. We're not really going to learn much about Bournemouth losing at home to Arsenal, but it always felt like Arsenal would struggle in these sort of games, for the last few years. But it was just they just made it look easy. They went 2-0 up very quickly, managed the game for a while, and just killed it with the third. And probably, honestly, could have had about 6. Maybe should have with some of the chances they created. The big takeaway from the game was the never-ending Saliba chant, which
that was miserable. Oh my god, that was so annoying. I had to mute my TV.
Yeah, and unfortunately for non-Arsenal fans, he went and scored an absolute blinder in that second half.
Mm-hmm.
Utterly ridiculous goal for a centre back to score. That's just where Arsenal are right now. They just look like a team that is just enjoying their football, and obviously I'm here for it.
Of course you are.
Yeah, they've got some great players, obviously taking a couple from City, like Jesus. I think when, these players come from teams that are big, you always kind of think, oh, is he something from the system or is he genuinely a good player? And I think he's kind of definitely proved that it's not. Jesus is kind of the real deal. Got an assist, got a goal disallowed by like literally millimeters. So that was quite unfortunate. But yeah, I think, as Matt said, the team was looking good in all fronts. They just look like a complete team, in my opinion. And also, like, if you can get a goal through set pieces, which they clearly worked on, a goal like that every other game, you're laughing. Arsenal look good. Damn it, I hate saying that.
That's a good save. Arsenal are good. I'm going to put a little spanner in the works. I don't think they're that great. I'm joking. But I think in terms of the games they faced, I think the first game was Crystal Palace. I think pre-season kind of hindered Crystal Palace. Then they went second game. They were against. I don't remember now. Was it Crystal Palace?
Leicester at home.
Yeah, Leicester. And I think Leicester are, in terms of a team that's in transition. They're
struggling.
They're struggling. And then they've got Bournemouth. So they've done really well. They've been professional. In previous seasons, we've seen Arsenal in these matches kind of throw it away. So that's the big takeaway from me. But I do think they've got bigger tests to come.
Yeah, we got Fulham next week. And as we all know, they're the best team in Europe. So we'll learn a lot about Arsenal.
Exactly. The next game is Crystal Palace and Aston Villa. So last week we actually talked quite nicely about Aston Villa for parts of it. Crystal Palace obviously coming from the draw from Liverpool, and I think we can see where teams are at. There's definitely a divide between these two.
Yeah, as every week that goes by, I get more and more concerned about Villa. Keep saying they need to start showing something under Gerrard, and this was honestly a pretty terrible performance. They started quite bright, got an early goal, but after that, it was just all Palace. I think Palace had 3.1 XG they created in this game, which is the most by any side in a game so far this season.
Oh, wow. Which
kind of tells you the story of this one, really. Bailey got an assist. Just when you're ready to write him off, he comes back and sort of at least reminds you of something. He needs to do it consistently, because I think Buendia started this one.
Yeah.
And I think I did that stat last week about Coutinho where it was like 0 SCA,
Yep.
0 goal creating actions, 0 key passes. That was Buendia this week. It just seems whoever they start in that role does absolutely nothing for them. I mean, I think at this point it's less of a personnel problem and maybe more of a tactical problem by Villa.
Yeah, I can see that for sure because Ings has scored 2 goals in 2 games, then gets dropped. They don't have any consistency in the lineup. Gerrard needs to have consistency in the lineup. We can see it throughout all the teams when they have a consistent lineup, maybe a slight 1 or 2 changes, it works well in their favor. So I think you said it, Matt, last week that Gerrard doesn't really know his lineup, and it's starting to show. I think one area they're getting exploited quite a lot that I've seen in the last few weeks is the wing backs. It seems like a lot of teams are targeting these areas and they're getting through with these, like a simple 1-2, and they're already down the byline. And then without a proper centre back pairing at the moment, I think the goals are going to be leaking in.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna play with very attacking sort of fullbacks or wing backs, you have to be a very, very good side to be able to do it in a 4-man defence. Liverpool can do it. Arsenal showing that they can kind of start to do it now. But over the past couple of years, it was something that they weren't always able to do. But for a side like Villa, that you're right, doesn't really have their identity yet. I don't think they can get away with it. And yeah, this inconsistency of selection, it's not just the selection, it's the fact that obviously last week you have Ings and Watkins up front, 2-man strike partnership.
Did well, yeah.
Did well. And okay, let's change that. Let's chop that and change that. And I don't really understand with Gerrard right now.
Especially because I thought in that Villa game against Everton last week, I thought Ings and Watkins did really, really well. I felt like they combined really well. Ings got a goal, Watkins got 2 assists, and I was kind of surprised that Bailey started over Ings, and obviously he came off for Ings at 70-minute mark. But yeah, agreed. I think Gerrard just needs to settle on the team because, as we said, like he does actually have some great players and some good talent, some good young talent as well. And there's a lot of things that he could do in the team that a lot of teams can't. Like if he wants to carry it with Ramsey, he could do that. If he wants to push up Dean on the wing, he can do that. If he just wants to play up ball over the top, he could do that. I feel like, yeah, Gerrard just needs to kind of just sort it out. Otherwise, they will be in trouble because I think they've got some tough games coming up. They've got Arsenal, City, and Leicester, who can score a lot of goals as well. And yeah, it'll be a tough month next month for Gerrard, I think.
Yeah, one more thing on Villa, that big summer signing, Diego Carlos, is out for a while, it seems. So that's obviously bad news. Yeah, I mean, their problems exist more going forward for me at the moment, but yeah, it's not looking good.
Yep. On to the next game, which is West Ham and Brighton. West Ham haven't scored a goal, haven't got a point. I guess they were against a great Brighton side who are probably outside the top 6, probably most likely to get in there at the moment with form, based on form. I think we can stop saying that Brighton are overachievers. I think this is, their style of football. This is where they're at. They are a very good football side. West Ham have been unfortunate with their games that they've lost. Maybe Nottingham Forest was a bit of a one-off, against the first game at Nottingham Stadium, and then the first game was against City. So it's been unlucky, but at the same time, I haven't seen any signs.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You're right. It has been a difficult start in terms of fixtures. Man City is never. There's never a good time to play Man City. Forest, crowd bouncing, and this one, you're right. Brighton are just a genuinely good side. It's no longer a surprise, but they haven't scored. They haven't scored yet, West Ham. I mean, I haven't really seen anything that gives me confidence in them at the moment. Their big signing, their big money striker is yet to start. He's sticking with Antonio, even though Antonio has done very little at the start of this season. Bowen barely looks involved in what I've seen of West Ham. so far. I mean, there has been a couple of. I mean, the Forest game they did create a lot of chances, so we are potentially just looking at a team that's just been slightly unfortunate to start the season. But the longer it goes on, players perhaps start to get doubts, confidence drops. It's a slippery slope.
Yep, and there's a lot of teams around in their position gunning for where they're at. They were comfortably like kind of that team near the top 6, but now Brighton, even Leeds have resurgence. Newcastle, these teams are coming up. They've got to be careful with that.
Yeah, it's hard to maintain that best of the rest sort of title. Leicester had it for a bit.
Wolves,
West Ham have moved in. Wolves, but there's always teams that are ready to take that mantle. And do you know what? It might just be Brighton's time.
Yep. In terms of like you were saying about Leicester City, they were one of the top teams. They were obviously won the Premier League, and they were finishing at top 5, 5th position 2 seasons in a row.
Probably should have been Champions League.
Yeah, and they seem to be getting a few players like leaving them today. I think Tielemans and Fofana were left out of the squad because their head wasn't right.
Yeah, I mean Tielemans was on the bench, but left out the starting lineup. The pair of them, and we always think of Leicester. They've had question marks defensively for the last year and a bit. That's not news, but we always expect that there'll be a team that creates chances, scores goals. They've got some great attacking players. This game's a concern. They had one shot in the second half. Maddison scored it, to be fair. One shot in the second half at home to Southampton, who have got their own problems, to be honest. It's getting worrying for Leicester.
I was watching lots of streamers on the weekend, and they all kind of say the same thing about Leicester, that the games always start off 1-1. There is no way Leicester in their current state of form can keep a clean sheet. It's just nearly impossible with the players they have. And, obviously Schmeichel left. You got Martin Evans, who probably aren't the best centre-back pairing in the world.
And Soyuncu's on the bench. I know his form dipped last season, but he's better than Amati.
And every time I see Leicester highlights, it's literally just Amati out of position trying to head the ball out. And I just feel like if Leicester, because they've always been a team that can score goals. I think that's kind of established. It was always about kind of leaking goals against. But if they're losing some of their key players, like pretty much every key player in all phases of the field look like they could be going, or at least kind of
it's
heading forward for going.
It's heading towards the max exodus of that club. I will say for Southampton, who we all think may well struggle this season. Not a lot of us had a lot of confidence in them. They've done all right. I know that they sort of got turned over by Tottenham, but they showed character against Leeds, coming back from 2-0 down. This one, they're 1-0 down again. They turn it around late. They're showing a lot of character for Hasenhüttl, and they may lack quality. Really sort of all over the pitch. There's one or two very good players and a lot of sort of average players, without being too disrespectful, but fair play to them. I mean, they got 4 points from the last couple of games, and they probably should have 0.
Yeah, I agree with that. 2 late charges. I think with Southampton, like you said, they don't have the quality players. The players that stand out is probably Ward-Prowse, Walker-Peters. Not really much to say about any other positions. And I agree with you on the character point. They've come back late in these games, but even previous seasons where they get beat 7-0, 9-0 or whatever against, where they just drop their hands, the next game they're still playing the same way, still playing with confidence. So they never really drop their heads, which is great to see though.
Yeah, they are a likable team, and I like Hasenhüttl. Even after they've taken, you're right, even after they've had these big massive defeats, they still committed to this sort of style of playing. They started playing that 3-5-2 or sort of 3 central defenders. They seem to have ditched it now. Rightly so. They didn't look convincing in it at all. I like them in the 4-4-2. You know, there's going to be weeks where they get turned over. They are Southampton. You know, we're not talking about, you know, Arsenal or Liverpool or Manchester United. We're talking about a team that's pretty low on top end players. But yeah, they work hard. They play for each other, and I think they'll be all right this year.
But our next game is probably where I would thought these two teams might go down, but Everton, Nottingham Forest, nothing really much to keep them apart. A bit of a scrappy game. The Pickford ball to Demarai Gray was great, and didn't expect that to see from that left foot. But yeah, not much to say about this match. What do you guys think?
Really, I think Pickford has an absolute boot, and I'm pretty sure he can kick it from a goalkeeper like further than anyone. So
yeah, he can probably go goalkeeper to goalkeeper. But yeah, this felt like a game between two teams that are fighting for that sort of 17th and 18th at the end of the season. And to be honest, when I saw Nottingham Forest take the lead with 9 minutes to go, I knew that Everton were going to go and score. Because this is what they've done every single game. Every game I watch them, they do nothing for 80 minutes and suddenly get into a position of like no return and, oh crap, we'll better start playing here. And you're right, the Pickford ball was utterly outrageous, but it's shocking defending from Forest. I mean, you can't be letting one ball get in behind you in the 88th minute, 1-0 up away from home. That's inexcusable.
And on to our last match, Spurs vs Wolves. Kane became the record goal scorer for one single club, if I'm correct. Yeah, so
be Aguero.
I think in this match, Wolves really kind of lack of striker maybe, but they really struggled to get chances in the box. They were taking a lot of shots. I think they had like 8-7 shots outside the box. They have all these dribblers who get into great positions and decide to shoot. I mean, Lloris is still a great keeper, so I'm not sure what their plan is going forward.
Yeah, they did create an awful lot of, well, I say create a lot. They had like 20 shots in this game, but only 3 on target, which kind of tells a story of where these shots were coming from. I think the biggest story is more Spurs, and this is the second week in a row now where for the first 45 minutes, they've just done nothing. They had 1 shot in the first half. They had 1 shot, and all right, you go to Stamford Bridge, fine. You accept that that's just a very, very good team on their day. That happens. But at home to Wolves, that's a little more alarming for me.
I kind of see it the opposite way. I kind of see it as like a game where Spurs were frustrated and they did well to win the game at the end of it. Like I don't think it was through lack of tactical nuance, but
it's that Conte factor again, isn't it? Where we said last week, when they win these games that they don't play so well in, it's look at the character. This is Conte's team. That mentality. It just depends on which way you look at it. For me, I'm more concerned about the sort of lack of cutting edge against Wolves.
Yeah, I think the one good thing we saw was Kane was a bit higher up this time than we saw in the last 2 games. He definitely felt like he was leading the line more. But I think Kulusevski and Son for the first half, I barely saw them. Something's weird with Son. He doesn't look like the player at the end of last year where he was so clinical. And he's always been a great finisher, but he just seems a bit off. I don't know, it might be like Richarlison possibly taking his spot or that competition where he wouldn't normally have it, because I think Son did come off for Richarlison, whereas Kulusevski stayed on, and we thought it would kind of be the opposite way around, didn't we?
Yeah, he's been a bit quiet to start the season. But Tottenham have in general, other than that Southampton game where they sort of ran riot by the end of it, it's been a difficult couple of games, but you know, we still don't have the full story with any of these teams yet. You know, this is just still largely guesswork after 3 games. This is not enough of a sample size. I mean, Spurs have got 7 points on the board. They'll be happy with that considering their performances.
Can I get a quick comment on Neto?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. To our correspondent of Neto.
He did absolutely nothing for the longest time, even more so than the Fulham game. But somehow still manages. There have been a lot of rumours of him going to Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm going to have to jump on this bandwagon with you, JC, if the rumours are true, and he does end up at Arsenal.
Which would be a shame because he'll be on Saka's spot for direct competition.
Yeah,
I mean, like
there will be a lot more rotation with Europa League this season. But you're right, he would be a little bit more starved of game time than he would get at Wolves. And I don't know, I don't see us stumping up the kind of money that it would take to get him this summer. That might be more of a back burner one.
How much is it? 50 million, was it?
I think maybe with delayed sort of installments as well, but we'll see what happens. I think Arsenal are going to pull a couple of surprises at the end of this window.
Breaking news.
As I mean, Fabrizio Romano is always saying that Edu likes to work in silence, so we'll see.
Okay, no breaking news then.
Messi at Emirates. You heard it here first. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Leave a like, subscribe, leave comments you have about the show. I will catch you out next week. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.